Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutter W. Welcome you to another Degrassiisms video. It's not a Degrassi unpopular opinion, it's all about Degrassiisms. Years ago, I did a honest opinion thing about how I felt about the Rick Murray timeline, 15 year at the 15th anniversary of when, Rick, well, the episode that Rick ended up shooting Jimmy and then being shot at by Sean. So I decided to look at it and see where my opinions were. And a lot of my opinions were like in 2019 were not really that great. So I decided, for my better judgment, to actually decide to do a Degrassi Honest Shootings thing 2022 edition. How I feel about it. But of course, I decided to do it based on character. And I'm going to try my best to have it like 3 minutes per character. So that's at least an hour. So here we go. First off, I want to talk about the people with the lowest and at the lowest end of the spectrum. And that's people like Craig. Now you think to yourself, how does Craig figure in this whole Degrassi shooting thing? Well, Craig, remember Time Stands Still, the subplot in especially in part one, that, Craig was sick. He stayed home. He bumped into Caitlin Ryan, who basically found out from Craig things were bad and then decided to try to help Joey, but Joey was not too pleased with Craig, basically saying that Craig is not a good person and all that for some strange reason. And then Craig decides to go to school despite being sick. Well, that was the day of the quiz thing, saying that I'd rather be at school than deal with Joey. All that. Of course, Joey ends up wanting to apologize to Craig, saying that, when he talks to Caitlin, he's like, I shouldn't let this situation burn me. So anyway, Craig goes to school sick, but then guess who ends up being the first person to see Jimmy's sprawled out body when he got shot? That's right, Craig Manning. And later on in the season, the next episode in Back in Black, he's saying, why are we feeling sympathy for this guy? He shot somebody and all that. I mean, I get Craig's feelings. Like, why are we saying that Toby's a bad person? Well, Rick's a good person and all that. And then later on in the season, Craig gets to be bipolar. People have said that Craig being bipolar could have been due to the Rick Murray situation. I don't think it had everything to do with the Rick Murray situation. I mean, yes, he saw Jimmy's sprawled out body and all that. And he was shocked and all that. But the simple fact is that it's not Craig. Well, lots of things factored to him being bipolar. There were stories of him probably being bipolar by the time his dad Albert's funeral at the end of season 2. But that's the way I go. Another person is Terry's dad. I mean, how did Terry's dad feel about the situation? Well, given how, his daughter was put in a coma by Rick, who seemingly was a nice guy and treated Terry well, Terry's dad didn't see the signs of everything being wrong. So you can't really blame on him. I mean, how would you know that how does he know that his daughter was seeing someone who was being a psychopath and all that and would actually be jealous and put her head on a rock and hurt her? The vibe I get with Terry's dad is that, why did Terry's dad not go to the authorities? Why did he not press charges against Rick or his parents or whoever? It just doesn't make sense. One theory I have is because, he doesn't want to cause a lot of pain and he thought Terry would be okay, and maybe it would be hard for Rick to be convicted or to have a criminal charge on him. But I feel like Terry's dad missed the mark by not pressing charges against Rick, because that could have made things a whole lot easier to handle. But of course, it's a storyline this writers wanted to do. You got yourself the staff of Degrassi. There's a couple certain staff members I'm not talking about, but I will talk about later. But the staff, when they dealt with the whole Rick situation, is like, if they knew Rick was being bullied, why didn't they send those students to the principal's office? Why didn't they you know, barge in and stop this whole thing. It just didn't make sense. If they knew how bad Rick had it, how come they didn't do anything? As as I said, there are two certain individuals I'll talk about later. But anyway, Quan sent Spinner to the principal's office for hurting Rick during a poem thing. And I feel like the staff were trying their best to make sure the students were okay. Like Miss Sove. It's like Sove talks to Hazel and said, "Hey Hazel, you know, the they want to talk. Jimmy's in the hospital, but we'll get you there as soon as possible." Aren't they supposed to be in lockdown that Sove can't move? Well, then again, it's like, well, Radich went to the media room. He should have stayed where he was. But I think it was some sort of thing. Regardless of that, like, you know, Hazel got shafted. I mean, but Hazel wasn't too shafted. I mean, she still had Jimmy. She still was in a relationship with Jimmy until season 5 when he figures that Jimmy was emotionally cheating on her with Ellie, and then Hazel took it badly. But I get it. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, it just doesn't make sense with the staff. And I feel like the staff may have distanced themselves from a certain principal, a certain staff member. I mean, Miss Kwan was forced to shut down Dracula, and she should have protected JT and Liberty's actions. So let's talk about Manny and Liberty for a matter. You know, my honest opinions. I mean, Manny and Liberty were there to try to help Emma in the aftermath of the whole Rick situation. Manny was closing in on Emma just after Emma had to deal with the fallout of almost being shot at by Rick. And Liberty, well, Liberty wasn't that close to Emma in a sense. Of course, there's the main reason is that Emma, for some odd reason, decided to not want Liberty being with Chris, saying that if Liberty's with Chris, what does that say about me? It's like, since when does Emma care about that? I mean, Emma and Sean broke up twice, and then Emma was never like, what does that say about me? It's like, that doesn't make sense. Why would Emma feel so self-centered in that situation? Manny told Liberty about the plan, and Manny and Liberty left Emma high and dry. I'll get more to it when I talk about Emma, about my honest opinions about Emma. But the simple fact is that Manny and Liberty were right to dump Emma off. But in a sense, Manny, I think, was more trying to get near Emma after Emma got in trouble for what she was going to do to Chris. And one question remains is like, why would Emma care about someone being with Chris? If Emma was not really into Chris, but maybe with Chris just to get on Sean's nerves, that should have been an unpopular opinion. I don't know if I did that one. But anyway, it's like, you know, I think Emma wanted to be with Chris to stick it to Sean and the Candy Bandits. I don't feel like I did that one. I'll have to take a look, but yeah, that's one I have to deal with. Well, yeah, Liberty and JT were in a way huge with the whole honest opinion. Is, you know, the whole thing with Dracula and Radich, which I will obviously get to. Well, I'll get to Radich later, but anyway, the Dracula thing is that Liberty and JT weren't taking the full Dracula into it. They were going to make it a little more campy than it usually is, and you know, they just wanted the school to heal and all that, and were upset that Raj just wanted a musical. And they both, I guess, kind of figured that he was doing it to try to save face and all that. JT sings a musical song. Liberty doesn't agree, and Liberty sings the Radish song at Radish, and basically Radish throws him into detention, gets them to finally admit their feelings for each other, which is kind of cool and all that. But I think that JT and Liberty off key did the right thing because it actually got Radich kicked out of the school. I think that was basically the final straw. And let's talk about the school board for a second. It's like it's shocking how the school board didn't fire Radich right off the bat. They waited like more than a week afterwards. That's fair assessment. I think the school board were hoping that Radich would do a 180, fix the situation with the school, and maybe find out who did the paint and feathers, and then that leads to a whole lot of mess. To me, it feels like the school board put the policy on Radich to allow Rick back in the school. It's not completely clear if Radich actually wanted Rick back at the school. I feel like he didn't want Rick back. I think, in a sense, he didn't want Rick to get a lot of issues. And in one unpopular opinion I did, Rachel Violetta, who I did a kind of thing on, said that, Radich was basically a guy who was trying to adhere to the school board thing and trying to keep his job. I feel like the school board kind of felt guilty about the situation. And, Radich says he's been reassigned. I think if Radich was, quote unquote, fired, then the school board would have been in trouble because, Radich could have snapped back at them saying that they're ones to talk, they were the problem in the first place. And I feel like Radich might have actually got the school board to do a double take and say, wait a minute, if we go after Radich, we're going to be in trouble too because our policies and all that. And then, the school board's policies probably meant that Radich would have gone back. I know Radich would probably have done it to save face, but here's another fact. The simple fact is that, reassigning him, they could have just fired him, but reassigning him, they felt like Radich screwed up, but they also felt like Radich deserves a second chance, so they reassigned him. I don't know where they plunked him and what position within the school board or the PTA or whatever, but I feel that Radich, left the school board high and dry saying that, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't be the bad guy I am or seemingly is. I think, and, the zero tolerance policy, Degrassi never really had a full zero tolerance policy before season 4. And they put the zero tolerance policy to get on Degrassi's case as a punishment that the students took the bullying incorrectly. And that it's a punishment. But it's like, where was the zero tolerance policy in high effect after season 4? Was it like it was just for the rest of the season and then the school board forgot all about it? That's kind of stupid. Like, zero tolerance should have been zero tolerance. Well, I guess I could say staff, but I also have to say about Hatzilakos' role. As she was the new principal, it was up to her to try to fix something. And, she expelled Spinner and Jay, rightfully so. Well, Spinner named Jay as a co-conspirator, and they both got in trouble because she said zero tolerance for the bullying, for the yellow paint and feathers, and all that. And then her statement of putting a boy in a wheelchair and a boy in a grave because of your selfish actions. Okay, you accidentally put Jimmy in a wheelchair and all that. That's fine, but you blaming Spinner for Rick's death? That's kind of stupid, don't you think? I know it was probably just the school board in her head or something. I feel that Hatzilakos had to do something, and she did it incorrectly. Yeah. She did allow Spinner to take summer courses to try to make up some of the stuff that he failed because he's expelled, which means his year is basically wiped clean. And she allowed Spinner to come back to the school in season 5 and told Spinner one false move and you're at the door. And Spinner vows not to make Hatzilakos ashamed of her decision. And he did a good job. I feel like Hatzilakos would have been a perfect principal. She's close to the kids. She thinks that she can do well with everybody. But the problem is that by season 5, she went downhill because of her close affections for Peter, her son, and letting Peter get away with murder, if it is, with the whole Manny situation. Let's talk about the student body, though, too. My opinion is that the student body, in one of my first unpopular opinion, in my 100th, focused on the student body should have been blamed more about the bullying of Rick. Now, we all know about Paige's clique. There's no secret they were going to make Rick pay for hurting Terry and want him out of the school. And it's no secret that Emma was the cause behind the Orange Ribbon campaign. But the problem was the student body took that orange ribbon thing and the way to get rid of Rick as a way to bully Rick out of school, basically showing him he's not welcome at Degrassi and all that. How they managed to avoid major punishment is beyond me, but the zero tolerance policy, I think, was meant to scare them off. I mean, yeah, they pushed Rick too far, but Rick was almost at a breaking point as is without the student body. I mean, with Finn Page's click, he had a boiling point, and that was pushed. But the fact of the matter is that, the student body obviously may have done a few things. With Rick's funeral, it's like they did not want to go to Rick's funeral because obviously they don't want to feel guilty by association, or some people probably force people not to do the whole going to the funeral. I think that maybe students were forcing their hand. They didn't want to admit their guilt and all that, and they were worried that any guilt about bullying Rick would come out. But when you look at things, it's like the student body was justified. Like, they hated on Rick for what he did to Terry. Fair enough. And heck, I get the student body's issues with dealing with Radich and the fact that he didn't allow Rick to leave. He didn't get Rick to leave or put some pressure on him. Radich did terribly by not communicating with the student body and all that. It made the student body just want to go after Rick. I think a lot of them did take Radich's misguided attempts as a way of saying, if Radich doesn't want to help, fuck him. We're going to destroy Rick by way or by crook. And then, of course, the student body mistook Emma's Orange Ribbon campaign as a way to help domestic violence people, but not as a way to bully people and all that. So that's what I think about that. When you look at the staff, you got to look at Snake, too. My honest opinion about Snake is that Snake did the right thing by taking accountability. It wasn't all his fault why the staff turned a blind eye seemingly to Rick's bullying. Snake says he wishes he knew the situation better. Heck, he had to deal with Rick's inner turmoil with Jimmy. Because when Jimmy was put on the Wacky Brain team instead of Heather Sinclair because of Heather's motto, which I doubt Craig caught from Heather or gave to Heather. Let's just say that now. But Snake was there. Snake was there when Toby showed up to a practice with a busted lip thanks to Spinner and Jay wanting to know where Rick is. And then he walks away. He should have walked away to Raj's office saying that, he had a hunch, or he should have talked to Toby saying, Toby, you gotta come to me with these problems. What really happened and all that. I think Snake may have blamed himself for not taking appropriate action. And that could have spurred Snake to try to become a student's principal, if you will. By the time that Hatsel Eccles left in season 9, he gave Snake the keys in season 10. He did that. Unfortunately, though, Audra was not too far, and Audra basically put Snake to the ringer, pressuring him to bow down to the PTA and the school board. So I'm thinking in a sense that Snake could have been a very good principal, but the students did take advantage of him in season 10. I will say that. But, Snake was fearful of his job, and he ended up being the guy that he was attacking in season 4. He attacked Radich's methods and all that. But, Snake didn't learn from it. I thought Snake would have used it to his advantage, but he ended up being kind of like Radich. So you got JT in a nutshell, as I said. Well, JT, of course, was upset with Toby leaving, being Rick's only friend and all that, and basically bullied him. But thankfully, Manny steps in to tell JT off, saying that if you hadn't dumped Toby off for Webster, or Danny, that being Liberty's brother, maybe as a covert way of getting to Liberty, then Toby wouldn't have felt the need to find a friend in Rick. JT realizes it, goes to the visitation, and tells Toby that it doesn't matter how I feel about Rick. It should never happen. JT did the right thing, and JT and Toby were going to be a power couple in a way until JT gets stabbed in season 6. Speaking of Toby, my honest opinion about Toby is, Toby got shafted. Season 1, he was a power star with Ashley, his stepsister. It's like Toby is going to take the luster outside of Emma, off of Emma. And then season 2, Craig pops into the picture, and Toby gets a few storylines, including trying to get near Kendra and then trying to lose weight to impress Kendra, saying that he's a nobody. Toby had self-esteem issues up the yin yang, and the writers didn't make it easy for him. All that with JT leaving Toby high and dry, Toby trying to get to Jimmy's group in season 3 to make Jimmy like him. Toby didn't have anyone to cling on to, so he found a friend in Rick in the trivia thing, Whack Your Brain, and then Snake pairs him up in some kind of thing. Toby has that kissing bet with Rick for role-playing dice, which Toby easily wins because it's either a psycho or a nobody. And a nobody always wins. Haha. Sorry. But anyway, Toby had the thing with Rick. And Toby was there when Sean accidentally shot Rick, in a sense. I mean, Sean was trying to get the gun away from Rick. And Sean, well, I'll talk about Sean later in a few seconds. But anyway, Toby didn't protect Emma. Like, Toby should have, talked to Rick better and all that, knowing about it. Toby knew something was fishy because Rick told his mom that he was going to run the school with the trivia thing. And Toby just went, nah, I'll run with it. Toby was put on the back burner, but thankfully JT and Toby were back to being a pair, and it saved Toby's character, in a sense. But then once JT died, Toby had nothing to grasp onto. Heck, he was kicked out of the opening sequence. Well, that's pathetic. And you talk about Sean. I mean, Sean was not really involved in the Rick Murray situation whatsoever, but he had a big hint. Remember, Time Stand Still Part 1, he sees Spinner, Jay, and Alex fight with the spray paint, and of course Alex says, "Oh, it's Rick," and then Jay says, "This is evidence. Let's go to Radich." And Spinner said, and Sean goes, "You can't do that because then he's going to ask about why Rick spray painted your vehicles." And then Jay realizes they have to destroy Rick without going through Radich because they're not going to win. They're going to have to incriminate themselves. And then, of course, Sean does the right thing. Police officers are always taught to try to de-escalate the situation first. And that's what Sean did. I applaud him for that. The worst part is that, some cops in today's society don't want to do that. They should first ask questions later. But not all of them. Anyway, Sean then figures that with Rick saying it's too late, I already shot somebody, he has to do something to try to prevent Emma from dying, because Sean definitely would have felt terrible if Emma died. What if Sean killed himself if Emma had been shot dead? But anyway, Sean is a hero. He relishes being a hero. Everyone wants to get him to open up. I thought they were just trying to say that Sean may have done something bad by shooting Rick and killing him. But it was accidental and all that. Sean then learns about his parents making some statement on TV, and so he goes to Wasaga Beach to confront them. A lot of people said, wait a minute, why would he skip school to go to Wasaga? But no, the school was open for grief counselors, but not for actual school. I know people are saying that, why was the school open on the day after? But it's just for reflections. If you watch the news a lot, is that the schools are open. They don't usually do classes. They just have grief counselors. That's a smart move. Anyway, Sean is a good character and all that. He confronts his parents, who said, we sent you to Wasaga with your brother because you were doing bad things. Sean confronts Tyler, the boy he deafened, and Tyler accuses Sean of hitting him and running, a hit and run, if you will. But Sean was pushed out of Wasaga by his parents. His parents sent him there. I think Sean would have finished the fight. Sean jumps off a jet ski. You kind of can see it, but, Sean won't open up to anyone, especially Ellie, who's worried about him. I feel bad for Ellie because, after Sean stayed in Wasaga, Ellie went a little bit downhill. She didn't really fully recover, I feel. And that's one of the most underrated things, is that Ellie got bit. But she got some good storylines. So, yeah, Sean decides to stay in Wasaga to deal with PTSD and tells his parents that he killed him. He feels terrible about it. And I was thinking, the first few times I rewatched the timeline, I'm thinking to myself, did Sean actually flee to Wasaga to try to stay away from the police because he's thinking that the police in Toronto were going to go after him for shooting Rick? But no, Sean Sean would have been a dead duck. He would have been forced to stay in Toronto and answer questions on the weekend. The police would definitely have, with this whole thing, try to force Sean to stay in Toronto and answer some questions. And I also was thinking to myself, first run, I'm thinking, was Sean leaving because Sean realized that he told Jay and them not to go to Radich with their complaints because it's going to incriminate them. And he thought that maybe Jay and Spinner and crew took it as a sign to destroy Rick once and for all. I doubt that highly. Sean came back in season 6, supposedly getting away from his PTSD thing with Emma. And basically, Sean worshipped Emma, the ground on Emma's thing. Talk about that. Let's talk about Rick's parents for a second. I mean, what do we know about Rick's parents and all that? Rick's mom was there in season 3 getting her son's stuff when Rick left Degrassi in the wake of hurting Terry in season 3. And she wants Spinner and everyone to stay away from her son. It's like she's getting his stuff. I first thought, oh my God, Rick got expelled. Why would Spinner and Paige go after him? I mean, he's being expelled. He may never come back. But no, Rick was pulled out of school by his parents. And I believe that Rick definitely played his parents like a fiddle. I'll talk more about Rick later, but anyway, I feel that Rick may have lied his way to his parents, and his mom believes him and all that. Rick's dad is a traveling salesman, and Rick doesn't like that he's away from the family. And people say, oh, Rick's dad probably is why Rick is so angry towards people. I say yes, maybe, but I think Paige is the most recent because of the whole rhetoric. I'll get more on that when I talk about Paige. But yeah, so Rick's parents are basically like, we don't know much about Rick's home life. That his mom works, his dad works. They don't really hear about Rick's problems because Rick refuses to tell them because Rick is afraid that their interference might get him hurt more. But I doubt that highly. And Rick's mom says that to think I wanted you to go to another school. And Rick says, you worry too much, mother. Besides, me and Toby are going to run the school. Sure. She lives in a fantasy world. But Rick's living in a fantasy world within his own head. And, you know, Rick's mom was comforting Toby at the visitation and all that. Just like she didn't really have much to do everything. And I just wish I knew about what happened to Rick's parents. What were their reactions after the shooting and all that? Was anything done to address the fact that Rick easily got the gun from his dad's briefcase, despite the fact his dad probably locked it up for keepsies? I wonder if they got any charges. Would they have gotten any type of settlement? I doubt they would. Or they probably did get a settlement, but it wasn't as big as it should have been because of how Rick behaved. Anyway, so that's kind of weird. So I talked about that. I talked about, who have I not talked about? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I've got 8 people to talk about. Let's talk about Jimmy, because he was the lower end of the 8 people. So in a sense, Jimmy was a weird person. Like, yes, Jimmy was on that road trip when Terry got hurt and all that, and Jimmy pretty much wanted Rick to suffer consequences for what he did to Terry. But it feels that Jimmy was in Paige's clique, and Jimmy was one of the tormentors of Rick. Let's not forget, he, alongside Spinner, put Rick into that dumpster in Time Stand Still Part 1. I always thought it was Jay because I'm like, Jimmy couldn't be that evil. Well, he was. And then the next day, Jimmy's put on the Whack the Brain team because Heather's sick, and Jimmy could name the 3 longest rivers and the team with the most NBA titles. I believe the rivers were the Amazon, the Nile, and the Yangtze, and the NBA champions were Boston Celtics with 16 at that time. Now, Boston added a 17th title in 2008, but the Lakers have tied them up at 17. So if you do that question nowadays, Celtics or Lakers are a acceptable answer. But that's just my sports trivia mind. Cutter, stop thinking sports trivia. You have a job to do. So anyway, Jimmy, in a way, was a perfect person. In a way, that it was weird how he was a tormentor to Rick, and he got shot by Rick. But Jimmy decided to turn tail because turn sides because he hears about how Toby's being harassed, and Rick tells him that these people are going after me, and then now they know Toby is associated with me. They're going to go after Toby too. And Jimmy then realizes that maybe Rick wasn't so much of a guy. So Jimmy switches sides, which pisses off Spinner, Jay, and Alex, who are basically the only three main people who want Rick hurt instead of paying dearly for his crimes against Terry. So the simple fact is that, Jimmy didn't think anything of much. Jimmy actually was appalled that Spinner would tell him about the plan, about the painted feathers, confessing to the crime. And we don't even know what Jimmy happened. Jimmy and Spinner get into a fight, and literally they walk together inside the school. It's like, why aren't they at the principal's office? Jimmy can't believe his luck, and then, Jimmy doesn't know about Spinner and Jay's modus operandi. Rick tries to give Jimmy a chance to defend himself, but Jimmy doesn't, so Jimmy runs and gets shot at by Rick. Thankfully, Rick had his head turned, because if Rick was really pointing at Jimmy, he would have pointed at the head, not the spine. Jimmy got paralyzed, and we thought Jimmy was dead and all that. Of course, backstage, Aubrey Graham, aka Drake, was trying to get into his music career, and I think he wasn't sure how he felt, and the Degrassi writers probably wanted him to be in a wheelchair. I don't know. But yeah, Jimmy had issues because his parents were basically closeted hating on the fact that Jimmy was paralyzed. And Jimmy tells his dad that, I got to do things myself. I want to fix things. I don't want to be a cripple, and I don't want to have you avoid me and all that. And then, Jimmy's dad says that, we'll work something out. And then, Jimmy comes back to the school. He makes a full recovery. Well, he's still in the wheelchair, but he comes to Degrassi, and Degrassi's happy that he's back. And of course, he had to deal with Spinner's problems and told Spinner about the fact that he couldn't hate on Spinner because, hate takes too much energy. And then, of course, he really blows up at Spinner after Spinner confesses about maybe telling Rick to shoot Jimmy. But, of course, Spinner didn't know that Rick had a gun. Nobody did, except for Rick himself. Of course, Jimmy breaks off with Spinner as a friend. Their relationship was very rocky, and it's like Spinner and Jay were becoming friends faster than Spinner and Jimmy. So, yeah, Jimmy forgave Spinner at the end of season 5 after Spinner proved himself worthy. And, they hung up, and Jimmy had some decent lines, but, Aubrey Graham wanted to do better things, and he is. He's a rap god. Let's talk about Paige next. And how I feel about Paige is that, Paige was kind of a pushy person. She was a diva. She was challenging Heather Sinclair for Queen Bee of Degrassi. And one Degrassi mini, she was revealed to be Heather Sinclair, an alter ego. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. Anyway, Paige, was upset. I mean, when Terry got hurt, because Paige was reluctant to let Rick come with Terry on the road trip because, Paige was with Spinner, Jimmy was with Hazel. And Paige set Rick off. And for some strange reason, Paige didn't run off after Terry, didn't put enough effort to run after Terry saying, hey, Terry, let's talk about this. And then Paige and Spinner have the foresight to run out, and they find Terry's comatose body. Paige knows that they can't go after Rick. They have to look after Terry, and if Terry died, it would be really bad. Paige had guilt over the fact that Terry went after Rick, and then, Terry got hit hard on the rock. She had the guilt, and she had the right to be guilty about that. She had the right to be guilty that she didn't tell Rick, Terry's dad about Rick's problems. But Terry's dad figured that he was out of line. And Paige in season 4 was upset when, Rick came back to the school. Paige was just coming off a rape trial in which she actually could have won the trial, but lack of evidence ruined her. And everyone was just sickened. Even Dean Sawyer was sickened. That was weird. Anyway, Paige, was upset that Rick was coming back to the school. I would think too. And then Paige figures that Emma is the perfect person to try to force Radich to relent and kick Rick to the curb because he says that nobody's helping us. Everyone's turning a blind eye. Paige was basically a bully towards Rick, not like a physical bully and all that. Paige was, of course, upset that Emma turned tail and protected Rick from being beaten up by Alex and a few other people. Paige was upset that Emma was showing sympathy towards Rick. And I get it. I get it with Paige. I really do. But in the end, Paige wasn't really much of a bully after that. And one thing I talked about in Unpopular Opinion is that Paige's efforts and time spent still when she calmed Rick down were underrated. Can you imagine what the storylines would have been if Rick had shot Paige? Rick probably would, but Rick shooting Paige, and then he would have been probably taken down by a staff member or something, and maybe then Jimmy would still be walking. Maybe Spinner and Jay would not have to worry about Jimmy spilling his guts on their plans to destroy Rick. Maybe Emma would not have had to deal with her PTSD. Maybe Sean would not have been a hero. Maybe Toby would not have been a coward. Who knows? But Paige did the right thing. Paige realizes that, she should talk to Rick saying that, the paint and feathers are childish. We're not going to be friends, but you deserve better. Rick slowly was raising the gun to shoot Paige, but he couldn't do it. Paige calmed him down. And I think after the shooting, she learned that she calmed, like Rick had a gun. And it's like, that's weird. Then why didn't he shoot me? I think she would have known. So yeah, Paige probably felt uncomfortable. And Paige did not have a good season 4. I mean, Dean got off scot-free with the rape. Spitter was having eyes for May instead of her while she was working a job to try to fix Spinner's car. I mean, Rick coming back to the school. She ends up being in a relationship with Mr. Olander, her student teacher, which causes a lot of friction, and she has problems on the Spirit Squad with Manny in a power struggle. Paige just did not have a good season. And then in season 5, she ended up falling in love with Alex. I'm sorry, but there were no signs that Paige was on the other team, if you get my drift. It just burned me. It's like, okay, Dylan's gay, her brother's gay, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's gay. I mean, Snake had a brother who was gay, but Snake was straight. All right, so let's talk about Terry. One of the main focuses here. Terry, to me, was an innocent bystander of this whole situation. Season 3, she finds out that someone's putting roses in her locker, and it's Rick. Terry and Rick are a decent couple. Terry gives Rick chances, but unfortunately, Rick is emotionally and physically abusive. Put her in a wall, Terry breaks it off, and all of a sudden, she's with nobody. However, with a trust exercise, she thinks that Rick is trusting. Unfortunately, Rick is still a little delusional. And then Terry and Rick go to do the road trip with Jimmy, Hazel, Spinner, and Paige. And it's like, what the hell? But, Terry went after Rick. Terry thought that Rick, was being sassed at by Paige. Terry didn't blow steam at Paige. She probably did. But Terry tells Rick that, it's Paige and all that. And Rick justifiably gets upset that Terry is with Paige, saying that Paige is poisoning her mind. Terry's mind. And then, of course, Terry gets her head struck on that rock, and then she's in the hospital. Thankfully, she's alive. We don't know what happened post season 3. I know the actress got booted off the show for some dumb reason. Thanks a lot, producers. Thanks a lot, CTV. Fuck you. But then, the only major... Well, everyone said that, we're justice for Terry and all that. In season 4, it's found out she went to a private school via Radich in that deleted scene. But to me, it's like, if Terry was featured more in the season 4 storyline, how would she have felt? I felt like, okay, she was happy that people would be kind towards her cause. But the problem was they were using violence. She was going to stop it. And I think that they would have backtracked because they're like, well, if Terry says to stop, we'll stop. Exactly. So going down to the last 6, I think. How many people do I have left? I'm looking at the list on my computer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. Well, 6. I forgot to mention about Alex. Well, Alex Spinner and Alex Spinner and Jay should be all the same person in the way that they felt about the Rick situation. Alex was not really involved in season 3, except being a candy bandit. But in season 4, she's the student council vice president with Marco. She tries to get Radish to change his tone, but to no avail. And then Alex decides a way to destroy Rick. And then Alex, after hearing Emma was about to receive a $500+ check from Rick for domestic violence, rips up the check and says, well, after Emma questions her validity on things, she says that, you're not the one that has to deal with your mother's abusive boyfriends, icing her down, going to women's shelters, hearing her cry herself to sleep, do everything for her. Alex would have definitely been a sympathetic character, but in Alex's mind, she pictured every guy as Rick. Alex basically said Rick was the embodiment of all the abusive boyfriends to her mom, and she wanted to do something about it and decided to do something about it by hurting Rick physically before Emma stepped in. Alex was one of the major tormentors to the bloody end. I mean, Alex had more of a reason to destroy Rick than Spinner and Jay. Well, Spinner, okay, not Spinner, but more so than Jay. I mean, we get it with Alex dealing with an abused mother, but she just used her energy on every guy who hurt her mom and put it into Rick's body. I get it. I know why Alex did it. And everyone is upset that Alex didn't get punishment for her role in the Painted Feathers. She was the one who did the Painted Feathers. I thought Jay and Spinner did, but no, they set it up for Alex. Alex had the access to the area to put the Painted Feathers on Rick. Alex was also the one who convinced Spinner and Jay that Rick spray painted their vehicles and all that. Well, Rick did, but did Alex have proof, or was Alex just trying to destroy Rick in such a way she didn't even care about evidence? I think it's both ways. The simple fact is that, Alex was that evil, and yet she didn't take any punishment. She didn't even have any remorse in a sense. Well, except for that one scene in Back in Black when she walks to school with Jay and says that I need to get things off my chest, and Jay says, be careful what you say and who you say it to. It's like Alex should have done that, and Alex should have used that to get on Jay's nerves and all that. Alex was not punished because Jay and Spinner convinced Rick in the boys' bathroom to destroy Jimmy. And I think that Spinner didn't want Alex to face the consequences, saying that, I'll take the rap for Alex. We never got to hear how Alex felt about the Rick aftermath, even after Spinner got expelled and all that. She was just in she was in the social circles replacing Spinner, and Jay for that matter. But yeah, she didn't have any regret. We didn't hear anything about her. Post Rick, the writers didn't say, hey, you know what, maybe she has bad feelings because of what happened with Rick Murray. We need to justify it and put an episode based on that, but no, definitely not. So we got that done. And, what about, I guess if you want to talk about Phility, you got to talk about Spinner. Spinner, to me, my honest opinion is that he had the right idea. He had more of a reason with him, Jay, and Alex being the last tormentors. He had more of a reason to get on Rick's bad side, to be mad at Rick, because, they were the ones that found Terry in the woods. They're the ones who had to call 911 instead of chasing Rick. They had to attend to Terry because if she died, they would really have been upset. It's obvious that Spinner had the guilt over the fact that they left Terry to be with Rick. The simple fact is that Spinner felt guilt and all that. And then when Rick came back, he was really angry and all that, and said that Rick should not be back for what he did to Terry. Spinner and Terry almost were a thing, but Paige ruined it for that pairing. Why? I don't know. Jealous prick. Anyway, Spinner was not going to let his foot off the pedal. He was one of them. He was one of the two to put Rick into the dumpster that forced Rick to finally retaliate. Spinner was with Jay, of course, to make sure that Rick didn't see the paint and feathers coming by getting his hopes up. Spinner basically was coerced by Jay to blame Jimmy for everything, even though that Spinner felt that was not going to work. It just ticks me off that Spinner confessed his crime to Jimmy, saying that, oh, the paint and feathers thing, a masterpiece. He's not thinking. Spinner basically thinks he's done a good thing, but he hasn't. He's done a terrible thing, and Jimmy might narc on him. And, Jay was going to try to be the best friend to Spinner. Spinner and Jay had a better relationship than Spinner and Jimmy. Spinner felt instant remorse after finding out that Rick had a gun and realizing, oh my God, we got Rick to believe everything, and he decided to shoot Jimmy. Spinner wanted to tell the cops, saying that it's going to come out, and I have to do this for my best friend. Jay was right, saying that either outcome, he was your best friend, either Jimmy's alive or dead. Spinner could have alleviated guilt by going to the hospital, but that would have been a trigger for him to confess his problems. So he kept quiet. And he finally decided, after Jimmy was getting too down on himself, to tell Jimmy that, in the bathroom, me and Jay planted it like you did it. Spinner was chastised by the school properly. Well, chastised before he got expelled. Spinner crashes Jimmy's party drunk and wants Jimmy to bite his head off. And Jimmy said all this stuff, saying that, a good friend would not put his friend in a bad situation like that. Spinner got himself expelled. He got Jay, because Spinner said that, if I'm going down, I might as well bring Jay down with me because, Jay's actions. Spinner makes an effort to try to be better. I mean, he almost burns the school for spurning him from coming back. I mean, being expelled means you're expelled. You lose your year. Jay saves Spinner's butt, and then Spinner decides to try to change for the better, knowing that he's got to go through hell. And season 5 was just him trying to fix the problem. But thankfully, though, Spinner got his redemption song. He took everything seriously. He didn't force anyone to be his friend again. He did well, and he got Jimmy back. It took a long time, and Spinner did the right thing by breaking off with Jay, because Jay was such a deviant. And let's talk about Jay while I'm at it. I mean, Jay had zero involvement with how Terry got hurt. Zero. He was nothing. He was a candy bandit in season 3 that stole Sean from Emma. Season 4, he's in this somehow. Why? He has no connection to Rick's problems with Terry. He just wants to be a bad boy. He just wants to be in the popular crowd. He just wants to prove his muscle by being a bad guy. And that's what it was. He was basically trying to prove he was a bad guy. And it didn't help matters that he was dating Alex. He just had a hard on for Alex and knew about Alex's problems with, her mother being abused. And Jay said, let's destroy the abuser. Okay, fair enough. You're helping Alex, but it feels like you're helping yourself try to be the bad guy. I mean, Jay's already on thin ice with me for forcing Sean to go back to his roots of being a bad boy and leaving Emma high and dry. Because I think Emma would not have been such a dick near the end of season 3. If Emma and Sean were back together, which they were in the end of season 2, Emma was not as bad as a person. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it seemed that Jay was more focused on trying to be the bad guy, the villain and all that. Jay decides to think of a plan to destroy Rick, knowing that Rick spray painted their cars for retaliation. Jay was the main guy to talk to Rick, saying that, everything is cool and all that. And then, they're happy, they're smiling when Alex did the paint and feathers. And then Jay hears about Spinner's problems because Spinner says, dude, Raditch knows. Because unbeknownst to us, well, unless you watch the deleted scenes, Spinner got in trouble for making clucking noises at Rick. Raditch heard them and was ready to tear Spinner a new one. The problem was that, Spinner was worried. But Spinner also would have thought that Jimmy might have narked on him. Spinner realizes, oh my God, why did I tell Jimmy about the paint and feathers? Why did I do that for? And Jay was trying to help Spinner alleviate his guilt. That's what a good friend does in some weird twisted fate. But, Jay, set the course, and Spinner was reluctant. But then after Jay shows Spinner about the paint and feathers in the sink and all that, Everything else, Jay felt good. Jay obviously was upset that Spinner and Alex showed remorse for what happened to Jimmy and said, "We better not say anything." And we did a world a favor. I mean, Rick's dead. He's a psycho. But you push him to be a psycho. If he was a true psycho without being pushed by Jay, fair enough. I agree with Jay, but no. So Jay had little remorse to do with the Rick situation. None so whatsoever. And Spinner finally cracks and snaps at Jay, saying that every time I'm with you, something bad happens. Jay was trying to help Spinner out with Darcy, but Jay was making things worse, and Spinner finally snaps. Jay lost everybody around him. Jay was reduced to trying to help JT with his drug dealing, all that. Jay finally wised up pretty much in season 7. I think that losing Spinner and Alex, for that matter, made Jay realize that, you know, he was without friends. And the simple fact is that Jay, in a strange way, got Emma to finally snap out of her zombie Emma phase and realize that she was a bad person. I mean, I know Jay wanted to be with Emma, but Jay made Emma a bad person. Although some people say that Emma's a bad person anyway, but I say screw that. All right, so we're down to the final 2 people to talk about. There, a lot of people are saying, "Wait a minute, you're making this statement and you forget the one key person you want to talk about." Exactly. So yeah, I've done a lot of Degrassi unpopular opinions / Degrassiisms on Daniel Radich, and he's a villain, but he's not doesn't deserve that much villainy and all that. But the simple fact is, Radich was the principal. The problems should have stopped with him. He was the brick wall, and he didn't allow himself to be the brick wall. Radich would have been the gigantic brick wall to stop everyone from being bad people. All he had to do was basically force Rick to say, "Hey, Rick, you did something bad. I don't want you at the school anymore because it's going to tick off everybody else." Or the next best thing Daniel Radich could have done is simply say, "You come to the school, but you have to deal with certain conditions. For one, I'm going to force you to have to go to Solvay for counseling. I'm going to force you to have to deal with other conditions. If you break one of these conditions, these tripwires, if you will, you're gone." But he didn't. Radich also could have just said to the students who were upset by this move, saying that Terry's at a private school, I don't have much information, and, I can't do anything about it. Radich could have easily said the reason why Rick is back at the school is because his crimes were done off school property. But in a way, I think Radich and his ego would have been like, "Wait a minute, then the students will probably press charges with the police, and, I could get in trouble." It's safe to say that Radich kind of didn't care about what Alex and Marco were saying to him. I mean, he's saying that, when a student gets a criminal charge, he or she cannot study at my school. Fair enough. But then, he goes after Emma by saying that, "Oh, I thought I have 3 people left. Fuck. I thought I only had 2. My fault." But anyway, Radich basically told Emma that, "I don't want you doing with this Rick situation. No one cares about your stupid crusades and all that." And Radich comes from a place that, the genetically modified foods thing in season 2. He still has the gripe against Emma trying to undermine his authority. He does not like people undermining his authority. Most principals don't. Fair enough. But he didn't help save the situation. He just basically had his actions cause, Jay and Spinner and Paige, to gang up to try to destroy Rick and try to do it to undermine Radich's authority. If Radich had been the principal he should have been, then Rick would have been back in Degrassi, but he would have had strict conditions and, would probably have been okay. But the simple fact is that Radich's ego has it. Right. And then, of course, he's not really involved till Time Stand Still Part 1 when he tells Rick to do a better job finding friends and all that. I get it. Radich hears what Rick says, and Rick doesn't say the magic words being bullied and all that. And Radich takes it as face value, saying that, he's upset that Jimmy doesn't want to be his friend. So he tells Rick come back to me if something serious happens. I mean, yeah, Rick was his own worst enemy with that. I get it. But the simple fact about Raj is that he basically shooed Rick away. And that was the catalyst for Snake snapping at him. Not once, but twice. Raj was going to find out who did the paint and feathers thing. He was going to actually help Rick out. And in that deleted scene, he put Spinner for a talk at 3:30 for Friday. 3:30 talk, and he was going to get to the bottom of it. And then he tells Rick he can go home, and then he allows Rick to go to his locker to clean up and all that. But the simple fact was that, Snake was not too happy with Raditch basically not helping Rick out. And Snake talks to Raditch, and Raditch says, "This is not preschool or daycare," as the original quote is, but I like to say preschool. "And make friends not part of the curriculum." He's missing the point. The point is Rick was bullied. He had paint and feathers on him. And he thinks it's because Rick was having trouble making friends? That's stupid. That's plain and dumb and stupid. What type of principal is he? And he's going to help Rick out? Of course, then the shooting happens. Raj instantly wants Snake to find warning signs about Rick and all that. But Snake blows up at him saying, now the hindsight comes into play. What happened to this before? And Radish says, I have 700 students. How was I supposed to know one was going to be angry with something and bring a gun over some spilled paint? And Snake says, this student talked to you several times. What have you done? And, Radish and Snake have a big falling out. Radish is trying to do damage control. It starts with the Dracula thing. He wanted Dracula to be off because of how gory the nature is. And I mean, it's a week after Rick's actions hurt the school in the PR department. I feel that Radish was right, but Radish should have just said the simple thing, we need to postpone this because, quite frankly, the school is suffering. So I feel that they should have said, we'll postpone Dracula, keep rehearsing, but we can't put it on for a while. Let's wait till the time is right. But it just goes to show that Radish was just all about the PR more than helping the students out and all that. And he does not take constructive criticism well. He's lashed out at Liberty and JT for their song. He's lashed out at Snake over, saying all that stuff about him. He lashes out at Emma for undermining his authority. He thinks he's better than everyone else. It's kind of an ego trip. Say what you want. I think Radish did feel bad about the Rick situation, but the simple fact is, what did he do to calm the students down? He did nothing. And then basically he was out the door. I feel that after it was found out about Radish leaving Rick high and dry, that he was done for. He played out the string. He figured he would be there because the same school board, who probably gave him more chances than he deserved, would help him out. But they decided to reassign him. Radish possibly in some way did not take the reassignment well and was upset at the school board for leaving him high and dry. So he basically said, screw you, I'm leaving. And in my headcanon, he heads to California for Chop Cut Rebuild. The worst part is we don't even get to hear about Radish or see Radish ever again. It's like he just went poof out of midair. I know Dan Woods wanted to leave the show. I know that with him being in California, the Degrassi people were wasting too much money bringing him to Toronto to air a few lines. But the simple fact is that it seemed that Radish was basically blackholed because of his actions with Rick Murray. It would have been nice to see something in passing, like 1 or 2 lines about him, about Radish. It's like when Hatzilakos left after season 9, she got no mention and all that. I guess they just wanted to move on from the principals. Radish may have gotten slighted in a sense. But yeah, Radish did a lot of wrong by mishandling the Rick situation. But the simple fact is, he's not a villain. He didn't bully Rick. He just ignored Rick at the worst possible time, even though that he was protecting Rick in Back in Black. And then you got yourself, sorry, my throat's getting parched. Then you got yourself this whole simple situation with Emma and all that. This is not sponsored by Pepsi Zero Sugar. I don't think you care if it's sponsored by Pepsi Zero Sugar. The simple fact is that, Emma was thrust into this Rick situation because she happened to be outside looking at Paige and her clique being angry that Rick was back at Degrassi. She was in the right place at the right time, or wrong place at the wrong time, depending on how you figure. And they basically tell her about Rick and all that. And says we have to do something about getting Rick out of Degrassi. And then she runs afoul of Radish, who basically said, Emma, stay out of this. We don't want to hear about your stupid crusades. Domestic violence is not stupid crusade, Radish. Fuck off. Sorry, that's how I feel. But the simple fact is that, Emma feels compelled to do something about it. And decides, okay, we'll do the Orange Ribbon campaign. Safe way to get Rick out of school and, to have Paige's clique be happy with her. Of course, it's the modus operandi because the fact that Emma lost her friends. She lost Manny and Liberty because of her petulance over the Chris situation. And Emma deserved what she got. I'm not protecting Emma whatsoever. But the simple fact is that Emma now had a way to get into a friend group and to take it to Liberty and Manny for banning her. She even says so in the girls' bathroom. After comforting Paige, she tells Liberty and Manny, good luck with your hot tub. I'm sipping on green tea with Paige, and they look protrude. Emma was just basically saying, you dare dump me off as a friend? Well, I don't fucking need you. Of course, we know she's lying. She really needed Liberty and Manny, but of course, in a different subtexture. The simple fact is that Emma felt great, and then when Rick gives her a check, Emma went into activist mode, saying that went into cause mode more than trying to destroy Rick. She was like, this money can help the cause and all that. She was thinking about the cause, not about hurting Rick. But of course, Alex and Paige tell her to not be sympathetic. She trips Rick up to prove her loyalty, but that fails when she protects Rick from being bullied, like being beaten up. Emma's like, it's fine to put Rick in a bad situation, but don't beat him up. They leave Emma high and dry. Emma tells Rick that she did it out of pity, and that doesn't mean she likes him, and all that. And it seemed that Emma only could hang out with Toby, Rick, and Heather for Rocky Brain. Well, then, of course, Jimmy pops in the picture, too. But it seemed that way. It seemed that Emma was just... Not many people wanted to be around Emma. I mean, Paige probably used her queen bee status to force people to stay away from Emma. And, Manny and Liberty might still be angry with her over the Chris situation. I think Liberty more so than Manny. I think Manny wanted to help her out. Liberty wasn't on the Wacky Brain team. She's one of the smartest people, but I think because Emma was put on the team, she didn't want to be anywhere near Emma. Gratitude. But that's just it. But Emma, doesn't fully see Rick's creepiness towards her until he goes, and I hope you can hear this, this is for you. So Emma's starting to worry about Rick creeping out on her. She decides to confront Rick after being pain and feathered, doing the right thing by saying that, no one's going to remember this. They're going to remember how great the trivia competition is. Wrongo. It's not going to matter, Em. And then Rick kisses Emma, and Emma's like, Rick, what are you doing? I thought you loved me. I pity you, get a clue. Now, it's safe to say Rick's first intention with the gun was not to go after Emma, because if he had, he would have shot Emma outside the school. Because, Rick, that Emma was with Toby, JT, and Danny at the picnic table outside the school. Rick would have brought the gun and shot Emma right there and then. He was going after Paige first and foremost. And then Emma just conveniently had to bump into Rick with Toby and Sean. And then Emma was having the gun pointed at her. Thankfully, though, Sean saved the day. Emma didn't know how to feel about the situation and all that. And then she collapses into Sean's arms in Back in Black because now the school's staring at her for the fact that she was, being creeped on by Rick and all that. The whole shooting because Emma would have been targeted. But, Emma goes to Wasaka Beach with Sean, Ellie, and Jay. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, the simple fact. She wanted to be with Sean. I mean, Sean saved her life. How could you not be there? And Emma didn't have a boyfriend. She probably thought that Sean would be perfect for the rebound after Chris. But no, it didn't happen because Sean went back to his thug and Emma looked forlorn. Emma didn't have a boyfriend or looked for a boyfriend for the rest of season 4. I guess Rick reminded her of these things. I mean, Emma and Jay were not really boyfriend girlfriend. I think it was just Emma going with Jay to try to fix her situation. Everyone telling her she's losing her touch. She's not the old Emma. There's a negativity towards the old Emma. And the old Emma situation is that Emma was a bad person. She made mountains on a molehill. She was clingy. She was bossy. She was a cause girl that rubbed people off the wrong way, especially Raditch. It's like you want Emma to be a bad person, to seem a bad person. I wonder how early internet boards thought about Emma, like before season 4. But yeah, Emma seemed a little melancholy. She was with Jay in some way. She gets gonorrhea. I think she does get gonorrhea. And, you know, she realizes she can't be who she isn't. So she snaps out of her funk. But unfortunately, the Rick situation had deep meaning towards her. She has, in my mind, the greatest timeline after time stands still because of the storyline. Because the simple fact is, her need for a boyfriend was the Rick situation. I mean, Emma made some poor choices in boys. I mean, Peter in season 5, after what he did to Manny, she went with Sean and was upset when Sean decided to leave for the army instead of being with her. Fair enough. And then she was with Damien in season 7, all willy-nilly. And then Kelly, she steals Kelly from Manny's things. She wanted a boy. She wanted a boy close to her because, remember, Emma didn't have a boyfriend with the Rick situation, and she might have been thinking, if I had a boyfriend, then Rick probably would not have gone after me. Probably went after the boyfriend, but the boyfriend might have hurt Rick, and Emma would have been happy. And, you know, it's with the friendship thing. If Emma had Manny and Liberty as friends, I think it would have been a friends network for Emma to basically say, wait a minute, something's fishy about Rick. What do you think, Emma and Liberty? Manny and Liberty. But she didn't have those options because of her pettiness towards the Chris situation. And I feel like she was going to be a clingy friend. She's like, I better have friends around me, a friend group around me, because of all the fact that, you know, I didn't have a friend group to help me with the Rick situation. And I'm thinking the clean friend face is Rick's fault. But riddle me this. If that was true, then why would Emma stupidly decide to date Peter behind Manny's back in season 5? Manny was in Emma's house because of her strict parents. Maybe Emma thought in a way that, you know, I'll keep Manny close to me, and then if Manny complains, I'll throw her out like a used tissue. I think Emma might have been clinging in that fact too. She wanted to be with Manny in a situation. But then, you know, after JT gets stabbed in the aftermath in season 6, she's reminded by Snake and Manny how much she's a bad person and how Manny's a good person towards Emma. And then Emma clings on to Manny and Liberty for that matter too. Saying that, you know, you have to win friends with salad. And finally, let's talk about Rick. Let's talk about the guy behind this whole thing. And the situation is simple. Rick Murray, for all he's got, was a terrible boyfriend to Terry. He didn't care about Terry's feelings, it seemed. He didn't care about the situations. He didn't care about consequences. He just lied, stole, and cheated his way out of trouble. He obviously lied to his parents about the Terry situation. Maybe told a half-truth, but, you know, Rick knew that if he could get to his parents, his naive mother, then, you know, he wouldn't have to deal with the consequences. But he could also have said that Terry fell accidentally. They think I pushed her. All that. I gotta leave. Degrassi. He can't. And then he has to go to come back. We all thought, okay, Rick got away with it in a sense, but he got punished. So we're like, why did he come back to Degrassi? He wanted to prove that he was better, and he wanted to prove that, you know, he didn't He said, I will go into the lion's den and feel the wrath and maybe they'll stop. They never did. They didn't let up. Well, they kind of let up, but they didn't fully let up. Rick kind of deserved being bullied. Rick deserved some hate with the whole Terry situation, but he did not deserve to be beat up and almost bludgeoned to death. But my thinking is, why was Rick not beaten up outside school property, like outside school grounds, more often? I thought that when they beat him up, they would have done so without Emma pushing it. Just doesn't make sense. But the simple fact is that, Rick had a good thinking. I mean, I understand Rick's situation. He wanted to go to Degrassi and thinking that, okay, he's going to get wrapped for a few days and then they'll stop. They didn't stop. Rick was delusional. He had the delusions in his head. In his head, he pictured the perfect scenario that he'd be back at Degrassi, he'd be happy, people will easily forgive him for what he does to Terry, and he'll help the school out in the trivia thing. And that he's found somebody who likes him for him, and that's Emma. Although Emma was only doing it to protect Rick from being beaten up further. And I know that there was another line that Emma probably did this because Emma probably protected Rick, because what would have happened if it got out that Emma was the start of this whole thing? If Rick had been dead or massively hurt in the hospital, Emma would have been blamed for everything by Raditch, but Emma probably would have blamed Paige's group and all that. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me, bitch. But yeah, like Rick was fixated on Emma. Also for the fact that Rick figured that with Paige being a prick towards him and Paige potentially spreading anti-Rick rhetoric in his head, of course, that, Emma is soon going to be like Terry. He probably thought that Emma was like Terry, under Paige's thumb and afraid to speak out against Paige. So he gives the $500, hoping to buy Emma's forgiveness. I don't think Emma probably wanted the check to forgive him. It was just to give the money. She could have faked her way through. But of course, Rick picked up Toby as a friend. Rick got bullied unnecessarily. Like, he was put in that dumpster. And then I thought he found the spray cans in the dumpster, but no, he bought spray cans and decided to circle and X everyone's cars and go like this. I think it's like this. But the simple fact is, he didn't know the consequences of his action. He retaliated. Now, it's safe to say that, should Rick have retaliated? Rick, I feel, needed to retaliate because he needed to tell everyone that you do this to me. How about if the shoe's on the other foot? I can get that way of thinking. I understand that way of thinking. But it just made things worse. And Jay, Spitter, and Alex were determined to screw him over. So Jay and his crew were going to destroy Rick. They wanted Rick's head on a platter, if you will. They decide that coming into the tiebreaker round, they needed to make sure Rick had no clue about the paint and feathers. And Rick successfully did his part, unknowingly. Rick was upset. He goes home, tries to find his parents, but he knows they're both working, and then finds his dad's gun easily accessible to him. And we don't know what's going to happen to him. He wants to destroy Paige. He lifts the gun up and all that. Unfortunately for him, well, fortunately in a sense, Paige calms him down. So he puts the gun back in his locker, decides to clean himself up, but unfortunately his paint and feathers bust him in a sense, and that's when Spitter and Jay decide to blame Jimmy for everything. And then Rick went back into shooter mode, shot Jimmy, and almost shot Emma before Sean saved the day. And I will say this to my grave. Well, I shouldn't say this to my grave. I'll say this. Rick's death actually was better for Degrassi than you think. Because, if there was a trial, if Rick was alive and there was some kind of trial, imagine all the people who would have had to suffer major consequences within the courts. Paige's friend group. Emma would have suffered massively. Raj would have suffered massively. Maybe Snake, I'm not sure. Not Toby, that's for sure. Jimmy, I don't think would have suffered that much. Sure. The whole school would have been put on watch. The school would have lost a lot of things going forward. And I still think that Degrassi lost funding in a sense because of the whole Rick situation. But here's the one Topic sentence to finish this honest opinion. Rick brought a gun to the school. No sympathy for him whatsoever. He shot somebody. End of story. End of fucking story.